Hey, beautiful friends. I'm celebrating being too much. I think I've been too much for a lot of people my whole life. I bet I'm not the only one who's had this experience. In fact, I know I am not. There are poems written about the too much woman, the ones who are too loud, who love too hard, who have standards that are so high, or who just have so much energy that it radiates out, and people are like, could you tone that down? I've been asked to quiet down, to settle down, to stop being so enthusiastic, to, just to not be so weird in the past. I love that. I love it because I'm okay with being too much, especially at this time in my life. And most of my female friends, the ones that I connect with on the deep soul level, they're too much too, and we hang out with each other, and it's a lot, and it's not for everybody, but that's okay. In the words of my beautiful friend Rosalind Fung, I'm not for everybody. And she exemplifies that so beautifully, and witnessing her in her too muchness, too much, right? For some people, has absolutely inspired me to step more fully into my fullness and myself and who I really am, and stop holding myself back. Because we do that, right? We do it to fit in. We do it to, stay part of the group. And the thing is, we talked yesterday about authenticity and taking the masks off and being who we are to call in our soul family, right? We can't do that when we are, dimming our light down so much for the comfort of others. And this is a problem for everybody, men, women, non-binary people, right? I'm speaking into it from my perspective and my experience as a woman, but this is pretty much universal, that some of us carry a lot of energy, and our special interests, our talents, our gifts can be perceived as too much, or maybe like you're trying too hard because you excel at something, and people don't love to see that sometimes, at least in certain communities. My life has changed so dramatically, and instead of being surrounded by people now who think I'm too much, I am surrounded by people who celebrate that, like to go all in and give it all I've got. And I found that many, many years ago as well, in like the festival communities and the rave communities, then in the flow arts communities, and now in different spiritual communities and other places that I'm a part of, and friendships. And it's okay to be too much for some people. So yesterday I was messaging with somebody that was looking at podcast guests for a summit. And after explaining what it is that I do, they were like, oh, I'm sorry, that sounds way too woo for me. And I was like, oh, cool. If you don't like woo, I am not the right fit for you. Like, just straight up, this is not a good fit. And instead of going like, oh, I actually know how to speak of everything in a really scientific way, and I'm able to talk about manifestation and energy and belief systems in a really, like clinical, scientific, evidence-based way, which I can. I was just like, oh, not a good fit. I don't want to play in that realm. I don't want to hide the fact that I am a spiritual, mystical person who likes to bridge the practical and the strategy, especially in business, with the energetics and the magic. Because that's where I like to live. I like to live as this bridge between that mystical, magical, multidimensional with the practical earth-based systems and structures and the things that, are totally normal as well, and make it all of it instead of hiding different parts of me. And that is too much for some people. And that's amazing, because that means to me now that I have this clarity about my messaging, about who I am wanting to speak with. I'm wanting to talk to people who are not going to get freaked out if I talk about something that is on the spiritual side of it, on the magical side of it. I think that's the fun stuff, right? My favorite conversations are when we're talking about, angels and aliens and like the multidimensional infinite universe that exists on the outside of us if we expand out as far as we go, and how we can also find that exact same experience if we go all the way in, and we can find the quantum field on both sides. Like, that's the stuff that makes me really excited. I mean, everything else too. I love talking and having amazing conversations in general, but I'm at this point where I don't want to censor myself and hold myself back just for the comfort of others. In fact, I think that time is over for all of us. It's old paradigm, right? It was based in survival and necessity. Like, we wanted to stay safe and stay alive. So there's a big part of it that has to be healed when it comes to, say, the witch wound. Right? If you're not familiar with the witch wound, it's basically just in our collective consciousness, and for some of us in our ancestry and our soul's history, it hasn't been safe to be magical, to talk about the power that we have, right? To create reality, to heal, to grow, to expand, to be a co-creator with life. It was not safe for a very long time. And there are parts of the planet where it's not safe yet, but it is right here where I am now, and I think it's a very large part of my mission, my beingness, to basically wave my freak flag, the weirdest parts of me, and show that this is who I am because of a couple of reasons. Number one, then people who have been kind of hiding that part of themselves and thinking that no one else is going to get them if they talk about that stuff, they'll be like, oh, hey, there she is. Right? And we can find each other and we can talk about this stuff together. But also it gives other people permission to do the same thing, and it just ripples out, and people are stepping into their wholeness, taking off those masks, hiding like I've spoken of in other lives. There's this thing on TikTok going around about being too much right now, where people will go in a tirade, and at the end of it they will say, if I am too much, go find less. Go find less. And when I heard that for the first time, I was like, yes, that's the invitation, right? That's just how it is. You don't have to change who you are. You can just shift who you're around, right? And sometimes that gets lonely because there's a beginning part of that process where the people that maybe, you've been geographically or, close to, or maybe you've done this similar activities, or you've just been friends forever, that kind of thing. Maybe that's not their jam, and energetic frequencies shift, and then they kind of fall away. You grow apart, or sometimes there's like explosive, repulsive pushaways of that kind of thing. But then you have this spaciousness for the people that vibe with it to come and find you. And it works on the personal level, and it works on business. And the more clarity we have about who we are, and the more we allow our, the things that might be too much for some people to shine and just be out there for people to see, the more the people that get it will be like, yes, 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 let's do that. Let's do that. There was a time when I was walking along a dirt road at Shambhala Music Festival, where I've been about 5 times, and had so many amazing adventures there, because you really could just be yourself or explore different characters and just be so present with whatever you wanted to try out. And I walked by a gentleman who was sitting in basically tidy whities on the ground beside the road with a honey pot of gold glitter. and he was just dumping it on himself. And he caught my eye and he looked over and he said, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Keep going. It's amazing. And that moment has stuck with me. Like, this person did not know what they were doing with all of that sparkle, with all of that shine. They didn't even have a plan. The plan, he got to the point of like, hey, this glitter would be fun to put all over my body. He wasn't thinking beyond that point. And yet, I know he must have had an amazing night, but it just stuck out as a memory for me of, you don't have to know how or what. You just get to be as shiny as you want to be. And it was this inspiring moment of like not holding back. And I remember at that festival and at that time, when I would be getting ready with my friends for a performance or just going out to dance around this time just for fun, we would put on costumes, we would put on makeup, and we would add, and there would inevitably be somebody at some point of the night that would say, is this too much? And the answer was never, yes, it's too much. Take off the cat ears, take off the tail, take off that glitter, right? The only reason it could be too much in that environment of people just feeling safe to shine and to share and to be and express was if it wasn't going to be comfortable, if it was going to be hard to keep track of, if you felt like it was going to be a flail thing, if you couldn't hula hoop in it. That is definitely a case where it's too much. And I learned, very soon that one-piece bodysuits or jumpsuits or whatever were like the most comfortable thing to be in. And I should probably do a fit check for you because I actually found a new one that I'm wearing that's like made out of pajama material and it's the best. But as a performer, it was easier to go and just be like, full sparkle, full shine. Because when you're watching someone perform, when you're watching someone on a stage, you want to see them be fully present and just radiating their fullness, right? But the trickier part was to live the way that I would dance or that I would perform. Right? Because it's different, because then you're not on a stage and people aren't like, you're not being paid to be all of this stuff. And I remember one of the greatest compliments one of my mentors ever gave to me was about 2 years after I had stepped into the Belief Repatterning Practitioner program, where I learned to support people in moving their limiting beliefs to something more supportive. And I was doing all this work for me. She said to me, you know what I love? You now walk and move through life the way that you dance. And in that moment, I was like, sweet. I feel it now. I felt the flow, and I felt that I had cracked something open and that I wasn't holding back who I really was anymore. And it's been a journey. Like I said, all of that witch wound healing, all of the relationships that have shifted and changed in my life, friendships, family members, all of that has not been easy. But it's also been the most rewarding thing I have ever done, is to stop censoring myself, right? And just to share more authentically. I remember shortly before that, 3 or 4 years ago, when I was starting to really notice the masks I was wearing, the way I was holding myself back, the way I was only sharing parts of me with the people who were like safe, and I was feeling that call to share more, and I was getting all of these intuitive women and other people like giving me the message from spirit, like sometimes unprompted. They'd be like, hey, you need to share more. Hey, you need to share your voice. Hey, you're holding back. And I was just like, fine, fine, I get it. And of course, the universe provided me with ample opportunities to move through this and move into that next level of sharing. And there was a 30-day challenge that was created by marketing expert Juliana Garcia that someone that was in the Belief Repatterning Practitioner program shared with us. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. It was like a 30-day, no holding back, here's my most authentic self challenge to post on social media, on Facebook. And I started sharing more. Started sharing more of those like mystical experiences, the magical experiences, the like, oh yeah, I talk to dead people sometimes. They'll just like show up in my kitchen when I'm making toast and want to like send a message to someone or share something with me, that kind of thing. And I was really terrified to share at first because of all of those, that witch wounding, the like, I'm going to be stoned to death for this, aren't I? That was either in my soul energy field or just in the collective where magical people, not super safe, even though I admired all of the people who were sharing that so publicly. And when I did it, it was amazing. I shared stories that were on my heart and I got zero pushback. Nobody was like, oh man, that's crazy. I think they just scrolled on by, or energetically they were not available to it and they didn't even see it. And the amount of people that reached out to me going like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's happened to me. Or, oh, I didn't think anyone would get that. Or, wow, that's so inspiring. It blew my mind. I was like, oh, this is part of what I'm supposed to do. Share really freely. The magical bits, the mystical bits, the stuff that I had kept hidden for, I guess up until that point, like 33, 34 years, that I didn't really tell a lot of people because it just seemed like safer and more private to keep it under wraps. And so this has been a really fun exploration that took all of my skills and all of my tools, and I had to actually like apply them to myself so that I could do a live and talk about channeling light language, maybe from Arcturian ambassadors that want to come through and share some codes with my light language class and things like that, right? And I'm not afraid anymore of people thinking I'm weird or crazy. I don't think I was really ever afraid of people thinking I was weird. I was afraid of the consequences that might come from them. Just at that soul level, it just didn't feel safe. And I was able to, through belief repatterning and calming my nervous system and doing the healing work and doing the just practicing sharing and seeing what happened, able to do that without it feeling uncomfortable anymore, because practice just creates that kind of comfort and that kind of ease. And so I'm excited that somebody told me I was too woo for them to be on their podcast yesterday. Because I was like, amazing. I am so glad that we figured that out before we had like awkward on air, like, oh, that was weird, like scenarios. And because it created spaciousness in my schedule and in her schedule for something more aligned to drop in. So if someone says you're not for them, celebrate that, because it's just bringing you more clarity about who is, what you are, and the space for that alignment to come in. So I love taking my woo. We're reclaiming that word. It used to be derogatory. The woo, the mystical, the magical, whatever you're talking about, the crystals, the tarot cards, the channeling, the Reiki, the whatever, and light language. Taking that woo and turning it into something that I celebrate, because I don't have to hold it back anymore. And then the people that are into that can be like, hey, let's hang out, let's play. The very same day that someone said I wasn't the right fit for their podcast, I had like 4 other people reach out to me for other things that were like, hey, can I work with you? Do you have a program here? Like it created the space energetically to say, no, this isn't a good fit for the things that were to rush in. So if you're too much for somebody, tell them to go find less. And you get to just play exactly as you are in your fullness and let it be fun. Right? Even if it's uncomfortable at first, that's okay. Everything is when you first start it, and then it gets easier, my friends. So I think we'll probably continue this conversation because it's a really important one over the next year. But this was a fun 11th live of the 365. Sending you all a lot of love and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and be sure to share this if you feel like there's somebody in your life that's holding back, and maybe they need to hear part of my journey into stepping more fully into all of that. Okay. All my love. Bye, darlings.